of Bulawayo conversations that we'll be doing effective today. So to make this predictable is by way of informing you that every Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Central African time, we shall be having these conversations at least for the month of June, and we'll review going forward. But thank you to everyone who is joining us. I see there are people in Bulawayo, George. I see there are people in Harare, our friends in the UK, Fadzai, greetings. The title of the topic this afternoon is Altered Realities, Shaping and Leveraging the New Normal. And it was by deliberate choice that we invited Charles to help us explore this topic. Basically, the backdrop is what everyone is currently experiencing, the COVID-19, and we want to deliberately navigate away from the victim narrative that has been happening all along by having a conversation with someone whom we believe has been proactive in defining what the current situation means to his practice and how he is reshaping his practice and being deliberate in terms of defining the circumstances in the present and going forward. So Charles, I think for the benefit of listeners and viewers who may not be in the know in terms of your practice and who you are, so a quick introduction of yourself, who you are, where did you do your art, how do you define your technique, so that people have a general appreciation of who we are dealing with this afternoon.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Charles Nkomo, a visual artist born in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. I practiced in Mzilika's Art and Craft. And then I was also an artist in the National Art Gallery for several years. So now I'm working on my private studio in South Africa. I'm into semi-abstract paintings. This is what I call it. So okay. With our topic,
continue. Today, it's okay, continue.
Yeah, with our topic today, I wanted to share with everyone who's an artist out there in this shaping the new normal, working in this pandemic COVID, which is there in our lives. One thing I will say as an artist, we mustn't stop creating. No matter how hard the circumstance is. I know it's not the same to each and every other artist, but as an artist, this is what we were born to do, to create.
Okay, thank you for that. You are saying people should continue creating, and perhaps if you can draw us closer into how you yourself have been able to continue practicing. For instance, we have resident artists. Some are now working from home, and we recently did a survey. For some, it's now difficult to continue creating, which is essentially what you are saying. At a personal level yourself, you have a studio in South Africa, but currently, because of COVID, you are stuck in Zimbabwe working from home. What is it that you have done to ensure that you continue creating work?
I've always looked at it as an artist that every time when there's difficulties, as an artist, that's when you become more creative. So with me, I didn't stop working. When I came down here, I didn't have like art materials, you know, but that didn't mean I had to stop to create. As an artist, you always work, you always create, no matter how the circumstance is. I know it's difficult with artists who work like in the studios, whereby they can't meet their art buyers direct. But as an artist, we've got all those people who have bought our works before, art collectors, art galleries. In this situation, those are the people we're supposed to engage with, show them what we've been doing, you know. So by doing so, some art collectors do buy your work, and then it gives you that leverage for you to keep on working, even if you're working at home. Understand some artists who are working in the studios, like in the National Art Gallery in Bulawayo, it's difficult because they don't get to meet the art buyers, like art lovers that usually come there, buy their work, so then they survive day-to-day life.
Wonderful. I think one element that I pick from your submission is that of a relationship building. You seem to have leveraged on relations that previously existed, and now that you're an artist in distress, so to speak, all that you have done was to activate those networks, and those individuals are now coming through for you in your hour of need. So that is essentially what I'm getting. Now, I want us to go back to your practice in particular. How do you define the type of art that you produce?
Mainly, I always say, as a Zimbabwean, I look at the situations that affect us. This is what I always try to portray through my artwork, to become the mirror to the community in everything that is affecting me around. This is what I try to portray in my work, to show what is happening in Africa as an African artist.
And I see at the back you have some artworks, and I think it would be nice at this point just to allow us to have an appreciation of what you have been working on during lockdown, if those paintings at the back are indeed products of COVID-19. Are you able just to give us a glimpse of what you've been working on?
Actually, the piece behind me was done 2018. It's not one of the pieces that I was working on now. At the present moment, as I said, I'm here in Zimbabwe. I've been doing my work on the papers, of which it was difficult for me to display them. But the work behind me is the work that I did 2009, which was showcased in Harare in the National Art Gallery.
All right. So, looking at the post-COVID-19 era in whatever shape or format it may be, what are some of your considerations going forward in terms of how you want your art practice to evolve? What do you see yourself changing or perhaps doing differently in light of what you are currently experiencing?
I will say, that's a good question. I will say most of the time when we are involved with a difficult time, a lot of things changes, especially as an artist. One, we couldn't get our supplies where we usually buy them. We had to work around with other materials. But by so doing, it made me realize a lot of ideas that came out through doing that, But what I will say, at the present moment, all the works that we do within this COVID, if we come out alive as artists, these are some of the works that will make historical in our lifetime, in the future.
Okay. Wonderful. You are one of the few well-traveled artists here in Bulawayo. How has your international or perhaps regional, starting in South Africa and going beyond, you have made many trips to the USA, and being someone whose practice evolved from Ziliga's Art and Craft Center, over the years, how has this regional and international exposure changed you as an individual first and foremost, and how has that further impacted the way you produce your work over the years?
I think by traveling to different places, you get to see different art, which motivates you as an artist to create more and to reach on a certain standards in your life as an artist. For me, moving from Zimbabwe to South Africa, it wasn't easy as an artist, but those are some of the decisions that you take as an artist by the time when I moved. Yeah, by creating every time, changing, I always say as an artist, you grow by growing, and then art collectors seeing the growth out of you. That's when it took me to the other level where I could be accepted into the international community to exhibit in the galleries where I'm exhibiting now.
All right. All right. So we are now progressing shortly to allowing colleagues here to also ask questions. And I know going forward again, looking at our young and emerging artists, and you yourself looking at your CV, you won a lot of accolades through the Visual Artists Association of Bulawayo, and that's an association that the gallery works with closely. What do you consider to be the new role of VAP, generally speaking, and in light of COVID-19? Because many established practitioners right now came through the ranks of VAP, yourself included. Going forward, reimagining the future, what do you consider to be the role of associations in terms of supporting artists?
I think the thing that we should do more is to do the workshops whereby we engage with the upcoming artists. Do workshop, work with them as the VAP, as the visual artist of Bulawayo, as we used to do before. Before we could do workshops, we had he was supporting artists in Bulawayo, which I think we should revive such organizations that will help artists, young coming artists, to be in a certain stage with their works.
All right. Wonderful. So institutional strengthening of VAP and the convening of capacity development workshops is what I get from you. Then my last question for this session, before we allow others to also chip in, is to check, I want us to go back to the crux of the topic, which is the altered realities. You ordinarily work from South Africa. For now, you are working from Zimbabwe. I want us to go back and tell us in greater detail the specific elements of how your practice has changed for now and how you want to shape it going forward, because I want to believe there are things that you have done to, to absorb the shocks. What are those interventions that you have instituted so that you define what the new normal means to you, and how you're going to leverage from this current experience? That general appreciation of what you've done since we went down on lockdown and what the future looks like for you.
The new normal, I'll say, we once, or we still had a disease that we called AIDS. That didn't stop us to work. With the COVID, which is, I will say, it's our new normal. It's something that we don't know when it will end as artists. But that doesn't mean we mustn't create, as I said before. This gives us opportunity to work. The works that we have, these are the works that will show in the future when the galleries will be open, when the institutions are open. As an artist, those are the works that you'll be showcasing. Those are the works that will maybe in your life will make a name for you.
Okay. So essentially, you are speaking to what I can call memory making. For now, COVID-19 is a lived reality, but through the work of your hands, you are constituting what I can call memory making. So those were some of my questions, but to avoid a dual conversation, I think at this point, if anyone has a question, you have the liberty to either put it across as a comment, and also alternatively, you can vocalize your question. As we wait for those submissions, I want us to reflect on collaborations, Charles. Over the years, what do you consider to have been the value of collaborating with other established and other upcoming artists? How does that grow your career as an individual?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Nyati. I think collaborating really grows you as an artist, seeing what other artists are doing, whether it's international or local artists. It really helps for me as an artist to grow and realize where I am at the present moment with my work.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm using my mobile phone, which I hardly use for Zoom meetings, so I can't tell if there's a comment or there's someone raising their hand. But if there's any question, please go ahead and ask. I see my friend here, Chenesai from Harare. Greetings. You have no question for our guest, Chenesai?
Right, sorry, this mute thing. Thanks, Charles, for talking about your work. I think it's very interesting when people cover their work during COVID and past COVID and the lived realities. My interest is around monetization of the craft. I think this is a question I'm asking on several platforms. How do you monetize when we don't have harmonized payment systems? So if you're selling your art online, how are you making money through it? And if you have traveled extensively, how do you feel we should prepare our system so that we can effectively monetize?
That's a good question, sister. At the present moment, I actually selling my work online to people that I've met before, to the art collectors that have collected my art before. This is how I'm making a living at the present moment through COVID. But most of their works, they will receive once everything goes to normal. That's when those work will be sent to them. But at the present moment, I've managed to sell a few pieces. I don't know if I'm answering you.
So how is the money remitted to you?
Yeah, that was my next follow-up. How is the money coming into you? Do you have a foreign account? How are you receiving this money? I'm sorry to be too personal, but I just want to understand.
Okay. Yeah, most of them they are sending it through Western Union or MoneyGram. This is how I'm receiving my funds.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for that submission. As we wait for another question, you know, everyone seems to be speaking the language of digital art. As a semi-abstract artist yourself, what does this sudden rush towards digitization mean to you from the perspective of production and from the perspective of marketing? What does this digitization rush mean to you as an individual in terms of how you create your work and how you market your work?
I think for me, it's something that is normal because each and every artist we know, we have like website of your works where you showcase your work online. So when this pandemic came by, whereby we couldn't showcase our works in the gallery, so for me, it became something normal that I've been showing my works on my website, on gallery website that are carrying some of my artworks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not sure if there's any other question. Before I ask my other question, very few people have been able to meaningfully break into the international art market. Like I've alluded to earlier on, you have a strong presence in the USA, in the region. From those, baby steps from Ziliga's Arts and Crafts Center and going international, what kept you going? What was the motivating factor? And what are the critical success factors to break into the international market so that our emerging artists can learn from you?
That's a good question, Mr. Nyati. I always say, as an artist, you grow. As an artist, every time when you paint, it's like playing music. The more you play your music, the more a lot of people get to listen to what you play. The more you create, the more people start to realize what you're doing. So this is how I've been doing it. People get to realize my work internationally because I've been persisting, working, pushing, letting my work out there for each and everyone to see.
Okay, fantastic. Is there any question from anyone? I also can't see comments. Like I said, I'm using my phone and it's very inconvenient for me.
Hi, Buto. It's Fadzai.
Yes, go ahead.
I thought I could ask a question about the feasibility of posting the work once it's brought online. How feasible is that in Zim? And the other sort of yeah, we can go online, but there's so many considerations about selling work online. So just asking Charles how he navigates for instance, if someone bought a piece of work, is it easy to then send the original to the buyer? Especially during COVID, how is that managed?
Can you speak up? I can't hear you now. Just raise your voice, Fatai, please.
How is the postage of artwork navigated during COVID if you sell your work online? Because I think selling work online is the way forward, the digital art form. But I wonder how the challenges that brings as well, and if we can sort of help each other with those sort of scenarios of how to market, yes, and move the artwork on. That's it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Fadzai. What I've been doing since with the COVID-19 started, as an artist, I've been marketing the works that I had in the galleries internationally and marketing the new works that I had that I was supposed to take down to South Carolina for my show. And most people who've been collecting at the present moment are the people who have once bought the artworks from me. So there is that relationship between the collector and the artist, knowing that it's not gonna open anytime soon, like the DHL that we use to send our stuff down to the art collectors. But now it's between the artist and the collector and the trust in between the two.
Okay.
I don't know
I
if
also,
you answer.
okay. Go ahead, go ahead.
Fadzai?
Yeah, that answers the questions. It's just, I find sometimes the logistics of selling artwork a bit complex, and I always wonder how easy it is to then move the artwork forward. Especially during COVID with all the sort of fears of, you know, transmitting the work. So as long as, I suppose, there is a trust that the work will get there, then I suppose it's feasible.
Yeah. It's like selling them to your collectors. I know you do have art collectors who've been collecting your art before. If he or she is interested buying your art at the present moment, that cannot close the deals for you to sell that particular art to them.
All right. I also recall you mentioning earlier on in the conversation that for some, it's a case of them sending the money with the expectation that the work will be shipped at a later date because of the relationships that you already have. If there is no other immediate question, I am aware that sometimes, you know, adversity inspires innovation. So I'm trying to check whether at this moment in time, due to COVID-19, you have experimented with new art forms, and whether experimentalism is something that has been a key component of your practice over the years. How have you sought to variate your practice, experiment with new art forms over the years in general, and in light of COVID-19 in particular?
Oh, thank you. As an artist, you experiment every day through whatever creations you're making. For me, experimenting every time gives me more ideas to what I create. With this COVID-19, I've been experimenting more through charcoal on paper. It was quite interesting when you usually work on acrylic and then all of a sudden you switch to pastel. It was an eye-opener for me. I really enjoyed doing it. And now at the present moment, I'm working on a series of COVID-19 using pastels on paper.
Okay, fantastic. Is there any other question?
Yeah.
Yes, George.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Charles if this pandemic has affected his narratives. Looking at what he usually works on, what kind of stories are you narrating to the audience, and yeah, something like that?
Thanks, George.
I don't know where this noise is coming from. You can go ahead, Charles.
Thanks, George. It really, I can't say it really affected me as such. As I said, as an artist, you create within your environment. As someone who paints about what is happening in our societies, this is what I'm portraying in my work. You know, the social distancing, the 2 meter apart, which I see most of the time in our communities. It's no longer 2 meter apart. Now I always say it's 2 centimeters apart. To me, 2 centimeters apart becomes a piece, becomes a title of a painting. You know, this is what I see. This is what I create. When we were told to wear masks, you find someone, most of our masks are just behind our chin. To me, that's art. This is what we see in our communities. This is what we create every day. I don't know if George, you answered.
Yebo, sanibonani. My question to, thank you very much, Charles, for the conversations. In the past, you used to work at a very small, and in the past few years, we've seen that you are now working large scale. What really changed?
Sorry, Nduna, I didn't get your question.
Nduna, my question is, for the past few years, I'm sure more than 15 years ago, your work used to be a very small scale. But given, I mean, today your work is at a very large scale. What really inspired you to move from small scale to large scale paintings?
I think as an artist, every time you grow, you know, working on a small scale became a time where I found that I was like squeezing my creativity, squeezing my feelings into that small thing. And I thought, why shouldn't I expand, work big, explore, you know? This is how I started to work on the big pieces. And there's that liberty working on those big pieces. I explore, it gives me that expression working on those big pieces.
And going forward, what role do you think artists have post COVID-19?
The biggest role that we have as artists is to educate, especially when we look at our communities. When we look at this COVID-19, a lot of people, like in the communities, at the beginning, they didn't have any ideas what is COVID-19, what is happening, you know? People were told, stay at home. Some, they didn't know the reason why should I stay at home. So as artists, this is the big role where we come in, because as an artist, I believe with the mirrors to these communities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chikuko.
Thank you, Mr. Chikuko. This is good. I'm speaking through Jabuli's computer. My phone is acting up. But building up on your question, Mr. Chief Curator, yours was to ask the role beyond the crisis. I want to further interrogate that line of thinking and say the role during the pandemic. Is it that the artist should therefore only create work that speaks to the COVID issue, or we can also explore other social issues, because the issue is, but there are other many multiple narratives that happen in any given society. Be a case that all that you do between now and the end of COVID is produce work that speaks to the COVID only, or an artist can equally continue exploring other topics that you have produced yourself. Which themes have taken prominence? Did you hear that?
Yeah, but I mean, your last words were breaking.
Okay, I was checking to say, looking at the works that is produced during this period, are they only about the virus, or they've explored other social issues?
I'm sure from the looks of the COVID-19, COVID-19 has affected us in all facets, whether economically, politically, and socially, and all forms of life have been affected by the COVID-19. So that's why I was saying post-COVID-19, because going forward, I mean, the mental health of all citizens across the globe have been affected. And I'm sure there are so many issues that COVID-19 has caused today, that these are subjects of interrogation for artists going forward. These are subjects of interrogation for artists even today. And like he rightly said earlier on, he's talking about the 1 meter social distance. I mean, the 1 meter apart. I mean, there are so many issues that I look at every day and say, where do we go from here? It is that question that we keep on asking ourselves. It is that those questions that the communities are always asking themselves. Countries are always asking themselves, communities and everybody else across the globe. So that's why I was asking that question, because I think going forward is very, very critical. And also looking at the statement that was said by the 2021 Venice curator, who was asked whether she was going to curate a coronavirus exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
And she said no. You know, but I mean, these are the issues. It's like when HIV and AIDS arrived globally,
Mm-hmm.
there were too many exhibitions on HIV and AIDS. But the impact of HIV and AIDS really was very, very strong, that it affected all communities. But the COVID-19 is even more than this, because the countries that we thought they were the health system that was, which we purported to thought that, I mean, it works, but COVID-19 with its impact, it affected those bigger nations. And we as smaller nations, it is those questions that artists are there to actually, because like he said, artists are the newsletters of the society. Whatever they do, it mirrors the society, which I think it's very, very strong coming from Charles, and who is an artist I've always admired. And I've seen him growing from when he finished at Mzilika's Art Center. And I'm really privileged to say the idea that an artist can keep their heads above the sand from the period Zimbabwe has been facing so many challenges. I think we need to applaud the resilience of these young artists, and artists like us and many others who are out there across the country. We need to applaud them for that, but we need to continue to keep our heads above the sand.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you for those words of affirmation. Is Charles still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm checking from colleagues if we have more questions as we move to the last 15 minutes of this session. What gives you joy and satisfaction as an artist? I know it's an elaborate question, but what gives you joy as an artist?
I always say it, color. Color gives me joy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love color so much, you know. I always say, how could I paint the world so beautiful? Color always gives me joy. That's why it keeps me going on. It keeps me working.
Okay, fantastic. If you have a question, please go ahead. I can't see properly if anyone is raising their hand.
Okay, sorry, I have a question for John.
Go ahead, Javo.
Fine.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I've got a question. My question is, okay, over the past years coming back, okay, looking at your journey currently, meaning that, okay, over the past years or 15 years of practicing art, have you been able to look at your journey during this lockdown? Did you manage to look back at your journey during this lockdown?
Yeah, I did. It's like when I looked at it, coming back from where I've been up to where I am now, then I said to myself, since I've started art, this is the first time whereby our institutions will be closed, where we showcase ourselves. So as a full-time artist, you ask yourself so many questions. What do we do? What can I do now? You know, in the beginning, when all this started, there was so many questions in me. Where will I exhibit myself? You know, because what I'm doing, this is my full-time job. This is where I survive. This is my life, you know.
Fantastic. Thank you. There was someone else who wanted to ask a question. Okay. Go ahead, Jabu. Is there any other question?
That okay for most artists, COVID-19 has been a pause. So that pause, I think it enables artists to look back at their journey and experiment. So I was just looking at that.
All right. Fantastic. So you're essentially speaking to the issue of this period being a reflection time, you know, to look back and also plan for the future, but not from the perspective of a victim, but someone being deliberate about the new normal that they want to see. I think that is how we want to frame our conversations. We don't want the new normal to define itself for us. We want to be proactive to the extent possible, at least. I don't know if Clifford has any question. As our curator here in Bulawayo, who has worked with CHARLES over the years. Clifford?
I've got a question here, sir.
So go ahead, please.
My question is to do, Charles, yes. You've got relatives both in Harare, in Bulawayo, and in South Africa. Have you faced any kind of fear of not visiting some of your friends because of COVID-19?
Yeah, I did. You know, it's like separating from the family members, which is not easy. It's like living a life that is not normal for me as an artist, you know, whereby you can't even visit your mom, you stay where you are, you only talk to them on the phone. To me, it was something that is difficult. It's not easy. All of a sudden, everything has to change, you know?
Mm-hmm. So has that really impacted or affected or kind of motivated kind of new works that would come out of you in terms of that fear of not being able to look, visit your mom and you stay where you are, or maybe you want to go and see Charles Bebe, and maybe you also have a feeling that Charles Bebe doesn't want to see you?
Yeah, it's really, I'll answer it into two phases. It's really scary. At the same time, it gives you that leverage whereby you create the situation that is happening now, you know. Mm-hmm. It's no longer normal the way it used to be. At the same time, it gives you ideas to create more works in this scenario.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. But again, as an artist, I think as an artist, when I look at it, when I was looking at this COVID-19, it became an eye-opener for most of us as artists, even the institutions that are carrying our works, whereby I see in the future where we need, like in Bulawayo, we've got VAP, which is a visual art association of artists in Bulawayo, where we need to have a funding of some sort, because not all of the artists, when it comes to the situation that we are in at the present moment, that those artists will survive. We need to have a funding whereby we take care of those other artists who are not managing to move forward at this present moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. I see Charles Pepe raised your hand. You can go ahead. No, we can't hear you. You're mute. You're mute.
All right. I had one question. As an artist who works from, let's say, Johannesburg, and then you had to come back home, we usually work in our space in isolation. And then now being at home, how has been your experience to work around family around you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pepe. It wasn't easy, you know. It wasn't easy. Like, as an artist, when you change your environment, every time when you move out of your studio, that connection that you have within the space where you work in, and when you change, you come to a new place. That's my home, of course, but not a working place. It's really difficult to adjust it, but as time goes on, I'm picking it up.
Fantastic.
Right. Yes.
Any other last one or two questions as we wrap up?
Can I just say, Buto, I was just wondering what Charles touched on, funding to support hardship funding. And he also touched on sort of how the COVID has opened up a lot of avenues and thoughts and questions. Is the National Gallery, how do they see their responsibility to artists moving forward in this time of COVID, in terms of being a sort of liaison, I suppose, in supporting artists in this time? And is there an artists union that looks at support for artists? How can this be brought together in order to get access to these hardship funds? Is there sort of a place where one can go to ask relevant questions for artists in Zimbabwe?
Okay. Well, I'll answer this in two parts. Then Raphael maybe can also come in from the Harare perspective. From a central government position, there has been a fund established to the value of 20 million, which we hope at some point will benefit artists, including some of our resident and non-resident artists. At least that is what central government has done. Then on our part, institutionally, using our own limited resources, we did, try and support on a humanitarian basis, just to provide some meal, to our resident artists. That is what we've done institutionally. And also to facilitate, ability for some of the artists to access this conversation, we've had to compensate either transport or communication. But these are not fundamental, far-reaching interventions, because we're also aware of our own resource limitations. But to the extent possible, that is what we've done from the Bulawayo Gallery perspective. I'm not sure, maybe if Raphael also wants to come in there.
Thank you very much. I mean, we need to look at it from a perspective that the National Gallery is a state-aided institution. As a state-aided institution, we are under the Ministry of Youth, Sports, Arts and Recreation, which today and for the past few weeks, we've been sitting in meetings whereby to look at how artists can be helped. So that funding, which is under our ministry and via the Ministry of Social Welfare, would be a grant to help those affected by lockdown. And for us as National Gallery, I'm sure we've made a call for an exhibition which we are not going to take any commission from the sales that artists are going to if their work gets sold online, the funds go directly to the artist without the gallery taking any commission. So that's our contribution. And I would like to also applaud the Bulawayo, which is the VAB, the Visual Association of Bulawayo, because it has been existing for so many years, and they're able to actually work with artists in Bulawayo in terms of the needs when in times of crisis. It is very unfortunate that, we do not have a similar association here in Harare, but it is my hope that artists will always come back to reality and to be able to come out with a similar organization like VAB that will stand for the artists in times of need. So as the gallery, our contribution, and I would like to take this opportunity to encourage artists to send their works so much that we can put them online, and we can now circulate that exhibition online so much that our followers and our art appreciators are across the world, those who feel their work is attractive, they can buy it, and the money goes directly to the artists, and it does not come to the coffers of the National Gallery of Zimbabwe. So we saw it to do that. Thank you.
In case we get cut because this is exactly 1 hour. Thank you very much to everyone for logging in. Like I said, every Tuesday, 2:30 p.m., we will be having these conversations. Harare also has Harare Conversations. We also have a digital art call for artworks also happening. Check out our social media platforms for more details. But thank you very much, Charles, for taking time, sharing your wisdom and experiences. We certainly appreciate your submissions, and I think everyone did benefit. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. This is what conversations are all about: ideation, sharing of ideas, experiences. And from where I stand, we can only just but express our gratitude and look forward to you joining us next week, same time, with a different topic and a different speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you.